Welcome to Street Moto Z. We have a 2023 Vulcan S, and we're going to check the chain to see if it needs to be tightened. Alright, let's check this chain. We want to get right in the middle of the chain, which is right about here. Owner's manual says we need 15 millimeters or 1.5 centimeters of slack. And I've read online a lot of people do not like that amount of slack. That's too small. Most people are more interested in 25 millimeters or 2.5 centimeters of slack. So we're going to measure this. 2.54 centimeters in an inch, so really 1 inch of slack. The way you measure slack is you can pull down and stretch the chain, but you don't want to pull down and stretch the chain. You just want to test the slack, which is the gentle measurement. So if you start with it pretty much just kind of a light hang, that's right at 6 inches, and then you push it up. You don't want to torque it, but just kind of a gentle push up, gentle push down. So that's about 1.25 inches. So we'll adjust it. We'll get it down to about 1 inch. And another thing we're going to do is we're going to check to make sure that the back axle is square. I'll show you how to do that. To tighten the chain, we have to adjust this screw here on both sides. This is an adjuster. They have measurements on the side of the Vulcan on both sides that you can use to generally estimate if you're in the right area. But the best way to make sure that you have this side adjusted back and the other side adjusted back, so where the axle is square with the swing arm pivot point. Once you have it square with the swing arm pivot point, that means your back tire is aligned, because you could be off a little bit and it will cause your motorcycle to pull. So we'll measure that and make sure that's right after we do all the adjustments. All right, I'm going to loosen this nut up, and then we're going to make some adjustments. What I've done is I've loosened up this bolt. When I was loosening it up, the other bolt was spinning, so I had to grab both sides and loosen this up. Of course, I had to take the cotter pin off to do that. And it's good to take the cotter pin off because you don't want to mess around with this with the cotter pin on, because it could damage the cotter pin. I've loosened up this nut and I've adjusted this bolt on both sides the same amount. It didn't take much, maybe 1/4 of a turn, to adjust this chain to where I want it. So now when I measure the chain, if I push down, I'm not torquing down. If I just push down, gently, that's 6 inches. If I push up gently, that's almost 5. I think that's a good sweet spot. It's about 20 millimeters or 2 centimeters, almost 1 inch. So that's going to be good. I think we've got it set. Now, next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to measure from the center of the axle to the edge of the swing arm pivot. So if I measure both sides, this side On the left side is, so that's 23, 8, 9, 10. 23 and 10/16. And it is 23 and 10/16. So they're both nice and square, the same distance from the center of the axle on both sides to the swing arm pivot point. So what I'll do is I'll lock this in and finish everything up, and I'm going to lightly tighten the axle, and then I'm going to measure again, because when you tighten these axle nuts, sometimes things can shift or move a little bit. So after I lightly tighten it, just to get it to grab, I'm going to measure it, and if everything's good, then I'll put it back together. If it's not, I'll loosen it up and adjust these. You'll see me put a rag in the chain, and what that does is that locks in the setting, and it helps the axle from not moving on you when you lock these nuts down. So you'll see that in the fast replay. The rear axle torque specifications are 62 Newton meters. So I've got it right set on 62. I've measured the distance between the rear axle and the swing arm pivot point on both sides, and they're both exactly the same, even after tightening it just slightly. I've got a rag in here. Roll the rag up into the sprocket here. What this does is it keeps this nut from shifting when you tighten it. Works really good. So let's torque it. 62 Newton meters squared. That's it. And now we just put everything back together, put the cotter pin back on, put the cap back on, get this rag out of here, and we'll measure everything one more time.
I don't ever slow up, no I don't take shit. I got no love for the fakeness. If you wanna play tough and wanna hate this, I'll always show up. I don't ever slow up, no I don't take shit. I got no love for the fakeness. If you wanna play tough and wanna hate this, I'll always show up and make a statement. I don't ever slow up, no I don't take shit. I got no love for the fakeness. If you wanna play tough and wanna hate this, I'll always show up and make a statement. Everything I do so instinctive and so passionate. Every word I move so descriptive like an adjective. I got a vendetta against people who patented being negative when you should be.
All done. Hope you like this video. Like and subscribe. And remember, it's not about the destination. It's about the ride, baby. Still got my Dragonfly, buddy.